In 1974, my guest tonight was a young, hotshot guitarist, singer and songwriter living in Los Angeles. With his talented and stunning girlfriend, he had released one album and they were broke. Then, on New Year's Eve 1974, Mick Fleetwood invited Lindsey Buckingham and his girlfriend, Stephanie Lynn Nicks, to join Fleetwood Mac. Lindsey Buckingham, the new kid on the block, went on to help define the sound of a band who would enjoy unimaginable global success. His unique, unorthodox brilliance on the guitar, superlative songwriting ability, and uncompromising approach to production placed him center stage of what was to become a rock and roll fairy tale. Some would say a soap opera.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies, tell me lies.
Rumours has sold a staggering 45 million copies, becoming the fourth best-selling album of all time. And Fleetwood Mac have sold over 100 million albums. He has also released 8 solo albums, collected countless awards, and every 4 years or so has rejoined Fleetwood Mac for another world-beating, arena-filling tour. He once declared he was never going back again, but tonight, let's try and make him do just that and revisit one of the greatest careers and stories in modern music. Ladies and gents, I'm incredibly proud and a little bit excited to introduce my guest tonight, Mr. Lindsey Buckingham. Great to see you. Thank you. Wow, what a welcome. Lindsey, I'm going to take you right back to the very early days. You were born in 1949 in the San Francisco Bay Area. And age 7, you started to teach yourself guitar. But I think it's true to say that still to this day, you don't read music.
That's true. I was fascinated with music at a very, very young age. But all that we had was what our parents had in the house. And then suddenly my older brother brings home a song called Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley. And, you know, it was a life-changing event.
And Elvis also had a terrific guitarist, Scotty Moore, who I think was an influence.
Yeah, he used a pick, but he also used his fingers. So I think I was quite influenced by that orchestral style of playing very early on. And then I got into folk music and continued to do that, and a little bit of light classical, and it kind of led me off in my own direction.
And tell me about the first time you actually met Stevie.
Well, I was a junior in high school. That would have made me about 16, and she transferred to my high school as a senior. She was a year older. Somehow she was aware that I played guitar, and I was aware that she played a little bit of guitar, and that we both had an interest in music. I think there might have been a sort of a subtext of a mutual attraction, but nothing that was really played out in any way. And then she went on to college, and I stayed in high school, so that I didn't see her for another year.
So the music came first, and then the relationship a little bit later on?
Yes. In fact, when I got to the same college, by then I was in a band for the first time.
This is Fritz.
Fritz, yeah. And I was actually playing bass, mostly. And
bass? That's interesting.
Well, you know, I didn't play lead, and my focus had been more as an orchestral player, and it didn't fit into the acid rock band that I found myself in. So we asked Stevie to join that band, and that band stayed together for about 4 years and played all around the Northern California area. And people in LA began to notice Stevie and myself and began to single us out. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for Fritz and the beginning of the beginning for Stevie and me. And I think the musical vision fueled the romantic vision, and gravity just kind of pulled us together.
And so Fritz split up, and you and Stevie decided to create an entity yourselves, Buckingham Nicks, and you managed to get a deal with Polydor.
We did, and then when we felt we were ready, we decided to relocate in Los Angeles. It really only took us about 6 months to secure a deal, which in retrospect seems very quick.
Very quick.
You know, we started recording with a guy named Keith Olsen, who we had met, who had helped us to get down. We had lived at Keith's house when we first moved to LA until we found our own place. And we made that album for Polydor. It was very well reviewed, and we were pretty disappointed that there didn't seem to be the connect we thought there'd be between quality and commercial outcome. And that was a lesson there, I think, you know, that the two do not necessarily coexist.
Lindsey, just before we move into the kind of Fleetwood Mac chapter, I'd really love it if you could manage to just give us a little taste of something from the Buckingham Nicks album.
Sure.
If you could be so kind.
This was an instrumental that I had written, and we had already recorded it, and I didn't have a title for it. And of course, in true Stevie Nicks fashion, she says, "Well, why don't you call it Stephanie?" And I said, "Yes, dear." Let's see, here we go.
Fantastic. The irony is about that Buckingham Nicks album is it's become an absolute collector's piece, and it was never released on CD to this very day. Are there any plans to release it?
Well, Stevie and I have been trying to work that out for about 30 years now.
Right.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
So, maybe.
And I mean, I think you were obviously feeling the pinch at the time, because I think I'm right in saying Stevie was actually waitressing.
Stevie was waitressing. I was taking odd jobs as a studio musician or backing up other people. I was out with Don Everly for a while.
Wow.
Also, you know, our home away from home, Sound City, which was the studio in which we recorded Buckingham Nicks, was very generous in giving us free studio time in their smaller back room. And that's where we were when we first met Mick Fleetwood. Mick was at Sound City to meet Keith Olsen. They were looking for not only a new producer, but a studio in which to work. Keith had put on a song from the Buckingham Nicks album called Frozen Love. Now, in the middle of that song, I happened to take a break from the back studio, and I see this giant guy, this tall, skinny guy behind the console just rocking away to one of our songs. And I'm going, what is going on here? And Keith introduces Mick. Nice to meet you, Mick. And went back to the studio and kept working. Didn't think any more of it. Well, about 2 weeks later, I guess their guitarist, Bob Welch, at the time, decided he was going to leave the band. And I get a call from Mick Fleetwood. And he said, Lindsey, would you be interested in joining Fleetwood Mac? And I sort of flippantly said, well, if you take me, you got to take my girlfriend, too. He said, I'll get back to you. And, you know, the irony for us was it was not a really clear-cut decision because we had done some shows, originally opening for other acts. I mean, we were able to play for like 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Wow.
Stevie and I kind of made a pros and cons list. And made the decision once Mick came back and said, it's okay, you know, with your girlfriend, then we made the decision to join.
I mean, even more remarkable because they didn't, I think I'm right in saying they didn't have an audition. You just literally got the gig.
Well, you know, Mick is a very intuitive guy. There had been many, many incarnations of Fleetwood Mac since Peter Green had departed from the band, who was the original visionary and leader of the band. And really, it was Mick who kept that band going. But you also have to look at what the music business was back then, because you had a guy over at Warner Brothers named Mo Austin. You know, he was the president of Warner Brothers back then, and it's really a comment, I think, on where the music business was and what it has become, because Mo had no real sense of where this band was going.
9 lineups in 8 years.
Oh my God. and complete non sequiturs from album to album.
Yeah.
Mo just thought, well, you know, there's something good that I see, a thread running through all of this. I'm just going to leave them on the label. Maybe something good will happen. And boy, did it.
Now, you joined Fleetwood Mac, and with a kind of huge gesture of generosity, you actually give the band 3 songs that you were planning to include in what would have been Buckingham Nicks 2.
Well, I don't know how much generosity was involved as much as expediency at that point. I mean, we were not reserving anything for ourselves as Buckingham Nicks. We were there to put our whole souls and hearts and minds into making Fleetwood Mac something else.
And the 3 songs were I'm So Afraid, Monday Morning, and a little song called Rhiannon. It sells an enormous amount of records. You then embark on a tour, and the cracks of the relationships first started to appear.
I think the cracks were there before that. John and Christine McVie were already in the final throes of their relationship. And Stevie and I had some problems after the release of Buckingham Nicks. So I think it's fair to say that the joining of Fleetwood Mac for both couples became the catalyst for splits.
So, yeah, you come back from the tour, and ultimately it's time to think about the next album. You end up in a studio up near San Francisco, and going into that environment must have been an incredible pressure.
Well, yeah, I mean, having to see your ex every day without ever having gotten real closure, and being someone who was sort of, to some degree or to a great degree, at the helm in the studio. I mean, I had to watch myself and make sure I was making the right decisions, because, you know, you could let your less than better self get in there and find yourself not necessarily doing the right thing for the band or for the destiny of the band. We'd had this very successful album, but we also had, you know, there was this potential to blow it, and we weren't going to let that happen.
Not only were we kind of crammed into this small room, wherever you went, you'd bump into your ex-partner, but then you had to come together and sometimes sing in one mic.
They were a real exercise in what you might call compartmentalization, you know. You had to seal off the emotions you might have been feeling and really just get on with what needed to be done.
And because famously, the lyrics of many of the songs on the album, as a listener, you read into them a kind of, if you like, rolling soap opera.
It was that, for sure. I think we saw the songs as, yes, perhaps being about each other, but in a slightly more generic way. When the listener got a hold of it and was able to define it as such, that I think we could finally be more objective about that whole subtext of musical soap opera. And really, that was a great appeal of the album. We brought out the voyeur in everybody. People were invested in us as people. They were invested in the drama of our lives, the subtext that existed with the album.
I think because one of the classics was The Chain. The way that song came together was quite unique, I think, Lindsey, wasn't it? Can you just tell us how the origin of The Chain? By all means, please do.
Well, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly. It really is, it's the one song that everyone is credited on. John, because he's got a very thematic bass part at the end, which is like a complete section of the song unto itself. And I think I had one of the sections, and Stevie wrote a part of it, and Christine wrote part of it, you know, but, you know, you started off with... Listen to the wind blow, watch the sun rise. Run in the shadows, damn your love, damn your lies. And if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain. And if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain.
I don't care what anybody says, I have the best job on the planet. And if you just take another example, like Dreams, Stevie's song, she says, you know, you say you want your freedom, etc.,
Yeah,
etc.
I never said that.
And then you wrote, Never Going Back Again.
Right.
Which is kind of touche.
Yes. And that wasn't even about her. I had to tell her that on the plane about 2 months ago when we were touring in America. What I meant was, for a minute I thought, you know, I was going to fall in love again, and I was very resolved not to go back and be hurt again, I think was really what that was about.
It made me see where I'll be. I've been down one time, I've been down 2 times, never going back again.
The tales of what went on in the studio are obviously very, very well documented. You've got all those relationships under pressure, and you've got all of the effect of the various substances. And it begs the question how you guys actually survived that.
We were enjoying something like the resilience of youth, and that goes for the physicality of what we were going through and also the emotional aspects. You know, I think we truly thought we were doing what we had to do in order to be creative.
Just before we leave the songs on Rumours, just give us a little bit of the backstory on Dreams.
It represents one of those cases as a producer and as a guitarist where I was able to hopefully elevate something of Stevie's and give it the structure and the framing it needed.
Can you just, when you talk about the 2 chords, can you just give us a little demo of that?
Well, she
Because the
writes-
reason I'm asking this is it's quite pivotal, I think, because later on, we're going to talk about Tusk later on, your role as you say, producer, became more and more pivotal, and I think that the signs of you taking that hold of the band, I think, Lindsey, were apparent.
This is the beauty of what I can bestow on Stevie. She'll bring something which has melodically the potential to be framed in a way which brings it into its own. She has a very exquisite sense of rhythm, and she'll work the rhythm of the melody, but there won't be any departures, you know. I mean, part of the strength of the song is that that's what all three sections of the song are, just doing that for like 4 minutes. So what you need is other things. In the first section, you know, and then the second section, you bring in something else, and then of course you bring the chords back with the full-on heralding of the harmonies in the third section. That was just one of those cases where I was able to bring the right thing. I mean, obviously it needed the center, which she brought, and I brought the edges.
So, after this year of recording, Rumours is finally finished. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've got a copy of it here. There it was.
Oh, there's one of those again.
Did you have any idea of just that this was going to be your Sgt. Pepper?
Well, no. I mean, we knew we had something that was quite good. And there's no way you can foresee, nor could the record company, nor could anyone really foresee that kind of Michael Jackson land area we got to, you know.
The album comes out February the 4th, 1977, and I don't think anybody had seen anything quite like it. I mean, it sat on the top of the charts for half a year.
I know.
Half a year.
When I think about that now, we'd be on the plane, on the road, and here's Billboard. Oh yeah, it's #1 again. I mean, you get kind of used to it. I mean, and it's insane. It was insane. It truly was. For a 27-year-old, there was a point, in my opinion, at which the success of Rumours became not about the music, but about the success. I guess what I'm trying to say is there were things to be wary of as well.
Such as, Lindsey?
Well, I mean, it would lead us into the follow-up album and reasons why we made Tusk, or why I, as the culprit who made Tusk, did my best to undermine this sort of axiom in business in general, but certainly in the music business, that if something works, just run it into the ground. A lot of artists begin to do what is expected of them from the outside, top-down kind of influences instead of bottom-up. And they begin to forget perhaps who they are, because making music is, what is it really about? It's not about selling 16 million albums. It's about the process, and it's about the creativity and expressing yourself and finding something that's your own, and not becoming a caricature of yourself.
So, you alluded to Tusk. Here was an album which became, I think, almost in some respects, a kind of preface to some of your solo albums. You took it on board yourself, and as a result of that, you had a different kind of pressure within Fleetwood Mac.
1978, 1977, late 77, a lot of new music had come over from England. Thank you very much. And America as well.
So we're talking about punk and new wave?
All of that, yeah.
The Clash, Sex Pistols?
Oh, love the Clash, yeah. It was that spirit of rebellion, that spirit of experimentation. It's not like they particularly influenced me, except to give me more courage to do what I thought was right. I had gotten back to working a bit alone, and left to my own devices, my stuff's going to be quite a bit more esoteric, quite a bit more off to the left. And I was doing that at home and bringing it into the studio, and everyone else was working on it together. But everyone kind of got drawn into the idea of this being something new and something different. Now, quite honestly, I don't think anything would have repeated that kind of success. So why try? That was a moment in time. But what happened to me was, whereas the band had initially been behind it, once it only sold 3 or 4 million, and it was a double album, there was a kind of a backlash from within the band now, saying, well, we're not going to do that anymore.
I think you described it once, Lindsey, as 4 fingers pointing at you.
Yes, exactly. 4 fingers and a record company. So you were quite insightful to say that Tusk, in a way, was like the precedent for solo work, because probably had the band not reacted poorly to Tusk, and again, only in light of the sales, not in light of how they felt about it artistically, there may never have been a need for me to make solo albums.
You must be proud of it now.
I am, of course, yeah.
You didn't use a pick.
No.
You actually used your fingers.
It began as a kind of a Travis pick.
After Merle Travis.
After Merle Travis.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time I use a pick is sometimes in the studio where you want to get a very clean strumming sound for a particular part that you're putting on. It's one of those things where it's the way I came up playing. So, I mean, Landslide is pretty much a straight-ahead Travis pick. Then you add the third finger. So, but Big Love is something a little different, because it's a kind of a combination of keeping almost like a bass note going underneath a counter melody. I began to really tap into the potential of a single guitar doing the work of a whole track, and that song was sort of the template for many other things that followed. There. Looking out for love in the night so still. Oh, how build you a kingdom in that house on the hill. Looking out for love, big, big love. You said that you love me, that you always will. Oh, you begged me to keep you in that house on the hill. Looking out for love, big, big love. The big standing O. I love it.
How do you write a song, Lindsey? I mean, especially throwing forward now to some of your solo material. What's the process?
Well, it has changed, really. When you're working with a band, the analogy I like to make is that it's probably a little bit more like movie making. You have to bring the actors the script. A director has to have something with which to work. You can't just show up on the set with nothing. When I work on solo material, I can go down to the studio and it would be something a bit more like an abstract painter just throwing colors on the canvas. And the writing, the lyrics, everything about what you would call the song becomes part of the process of working with the colors that are also the track. The painting begins to reveal itself to you, you know? And that's really a wonderful thing to have. And it's certainly a wonderful thing to have as a counterpoint to a group situation.
If the paint itself are the lyrics and the paintbrush is the instrument, the melody, what tends to come first?
Melodies always come first for me. You know, Stevie, on the other hand, is completely the opposite. She'll type out lyrics and put them in a drawer. And she won't have anything, and then when she needs to write a song, she'll pull out her lyrics and she'll try to put a melody to it. It's completely the inverse of what I do.
You've described the difference between your solo work and Fleetwood Mac as the small machine
Oh, yeah.
and the big machine.
Right. Fleetwood Mac, certainly it's a big machine on a musical level and a creative level and on a personality level and on an ego level. You know, if you combine all of those forces together in one room, you know, it's sort of like this town ain't big enough for all of us, you know. But more, I think more to the point, the way I was thinking about it was in terms of commerce. Choosing to make solo albums that are so far off to the left, you tend to lose the number of people for whom that is going to mean something or make sense. You've got the small machine, which at this point in my life is probably where most of the growth comes in artistically, because you get to a point with something like Fleetwood Mac, when you've been doing it as long as we have, where you kind of come to terms with the fact that people are not going to be too broken up if they don't hear something new. There's actually a freedom in that. And then it becomes about just getting up there and making it fresh. And that's where, again, the small machine comes in, because, you know, you can go do these things where you're making new music, and instead of playing for 20,000 people, maybe you're only playing for 1,500 people. And you can take your risks there, and you can keep aspiring to be an artist over here.
And you took that to an extreme, in a sense, with a solo tour, just yourself, with your guitar, performing material from Fleetwood Mac and from the solo albums.
I did the first couple of shows where I'm up there by myself with a pedal and, you know, a guitar going, oh, what have I gotten myself into? But it actually, it worked out very well.
I'd love it if you could just give us a little example of one of the tracks that you did on that tour.
What were we doing? This is called Bleed to Lover. I could play a little of that. Once again she steals away, then she reaches out to kiss me, and now she takes my breath away, pretending that she don't miss me. Oh, I would bleed to love her. Oh, bleed to love her. Oh, I would bleed to love her. And once again she calls to me, and she vanishes in thin air. And how she takes my breath away, pretending that she's not there. Oh, I would believe to love her. Oh, believe to love her. Oh, I would believe to love her. Believe to love her. Believe to love her.
Okay, it's time for me to throw over to you guys now, because we've got some of the guys here, as you know, Lindsey, are from music colleges, and they're burning to ask you questions.
Right, I'm sure they are, yeah.
So, who's going to go first? Who's going to jump into the deep end? Have we got somebody, lady in the front row?
Hello, my name's Hannah Unwin. I'm a musician, and I also don't use a pluck either, so right on. My question to you is, which Fleetwood Mac song become the most difficult to repeatedly perform?
Well, there's one we do called So Afraid. It's not that it's difficult, but it is very taxing on a nightly basis because it's got this very long solo that I have to do every night.
Thank God we didn't ask him to do that today.
Couldn't have done it.
Next question, please. Who have we got?
Hello, Lindsey. I'm Paul. I'm a musician and I produce music, and I'd like to know about the song Oh Diane. Some of my earliest memories are dancing to that song, singing to that song with my mum, and it was actually played at her funeral, so it's a kind of a big deal for everyone in my family. And we would like to know who Diane was, if she was a real person, somebody close to you, or if she's purely fictitious.
Diane was not a person. Diane was just something which sang well, I hate to tell you. But songs should be taken on in a more personal way by those who listen to them. In fact, the whole Rumours album was that way. The audience finished that definition of the album. And the same would hold true for Oh Diane. The fact that your family could take it on as something that much more personal, that's what music's for. That's what it was for.
Another question?
Hiya. My name's Claire, and I'm a musician and music blogger. And the dynamic between you and Stevie Nicks is something of a big point of interest in the band. How would you describe the relationship between the two of you and what you've meant to each other throughout the years?
Knowing someone since you're 16, then being in a band with them and not having a relationship with them, then having a relationship with them, then being in a band with them again and not having a relationship with them again. I mean, you know, it's pretty convoluted, right? We've been through things together that you know, very few people have gone through. But, you know, there is also what I would define as a healthy distance at this point. And yet there is this sort of undercurrent of a lot of things, nostalgia and kind of a love and you would, it's odd because on some strange level I think we're still working on it. It doesn't seem possible after all these years, but I think on some level we are, and that's sweet.
At this point in the proceedings, we're going to have a bit of fun. This is a section of the show, Lindsey, which we call single file. I'm going to ask you a single question, and you've got to try and answer in your own time with one single answer. What would you say is your single biggest achievement?
Well, I would think, oddly enough, that it has nothing to do with music, that it is that I waited until I was 48 to have my first child and to get married, and it's been the greatest gift of my life.
Which single event changed your life forever?
Well, I would have said meeting my wife, but I think we covered that one already. So let's just say meeting Mick Fleetwood.
Which single album by Fleetwood Mac are you proudest of?
Tusk, for me, remains a line in the sand. It was a choice that I made, but it was a line in the sand that got drawn that still has very much to do with the way I still try to think today.
And last question, Lindsey, on this. What single ambition have you yet to achieve?
I have a 15-year-old son and 2 daughters who are 13 and 9, and so I want to make sure that my children become all that their potential has to offer.
Okay, guys, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you so much, Lindsey, for coming here today and sharing with us some of the things that make you tick and motivate you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, Lindsey. It's been a real treat. Thank you.
And next week, it's Tony Bennett's turn to talk music. That's at the same time next Monday at 9 here on Sky Arts 1 HD. More Mac next. They're playing Boston.